Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of being a woman. They love to tell us we can't do that. Yeah, and also a person of color. I think it's not even a you can't do that. It's more of a it's not even accessible to you. So sometimes there would be a lot of times where I don't know what I should know, right? About something. Um, when I was in high school, I was completely bored in high school. Um, and in grade school I had gotten skipped uh maybe once or twice. At the second time, I was already very small. And then I went to, I believe it was skipped from the third grade to the fifth grade. I changed schools and they put me in this fifth grade class and everyone was so much bigger than me. And I just was like, I uh am not ready for socially, I was not ready for this class. I told my mom like I would rather go to the fourth grade and they put me in the fourth grade where I was supposed to be. Um, so when I got to high school now, I just really want, I enjoy learning. Sometimes kids are not into all of that, especially going to school in Brooklyn. Our school was like across the street from one of the roughest schools in Brooklyn at the time. And I remember I got into a fight with someone and my mom got called in and the counselor says to my mom, well, um, Juliet is doing really well. And I mean, the best way to get her out of the school is if she got her GED. And I was like, back then, like the 90s, you're like, ah, GED, like that just didn't sound like graduation. Um, but what I ended up learning, because I was like, there has to be some alternative to this, right? If I already have the grades and I have the GPA, and I ended up learning about the College Now program, where I would be able to be in high school, gets taken some college credits. And in my head, I thought this was like some secret that I had found, Uh, years later, I'm realizing this has always been a thing. And it was not introduced to me that way. It was introduced to me, and you should drop out and then do this thing. And then that it would just be a statistic instead of me doing something that a lot of other people in a lot of other communities do. And I always remembered that. And I always, when someone offers me something, I always think, well, what's the alternative? What are the other things I can do instead of this thing that sounds like I'm settling, right? Um, when I got to college, I was still under the impression, though, that, and I think this is just family encouragement. Juliet's so smart. Juliet's going to do really well. She's going to become a doctor or a nurse. And it was what I heard, so I didn't know. Although there was also Juliet's hobby is, reading and writing, and she writes really great poems. I mean, I have the first poem I wrote, I must have been 8 years old. I still remember it. So I had so much poetry, but it was like no one was encouraging me and saying, this is something you could do with it. I think coming from a immigrant family, you come here to America and you're expected to make it, and what it looks like, making it looks like getting into the nursing field or the medical field or um, becoming a lawyer because those were the things that, you know, was represented to us in media as well, right? So this is what success looks like. So when I got to college, I was still on that same track and I had to take an elective. And it was in radio, which was, I would say, my second love is music. I love music, but I also felt like music helped me to tell a story. I think music tells a story. So I was really excited about that. And the professor really saw the passion in me. And although this was an elective and it wasn't my major, she really like championed me as if I was one of her major students. And she gave me the opportunity to be like the head of the radio station. So I got to get like opening time. I was getting up at like 5 in the morning. I am not a morning person, so the fact that I even wanted to get up, I knew that this was complete passion. And I was obsessed. I was obsessed with being able to be on the radio and communicate with listeners every morning, playing what they needed to get up and start their day. And I decided this is what I want to do. This is somewhere in the vein of creativity that I want. From there, it grew into journalism, from journalism into documentarian work, to what I'm doing now. And it took a long time for me to figure out, okay, so how am I going to tell my mom that I'm not going to be a doctor? Because it was still what Juliet's going to school to be a doctor. And even when I finally did tell her, she was fine with it. She didn't quite understand it. I think when I got my first byline in a newspaper, I think I interviewed an MTV VJ. And she was like, wow, and it was on the cover of the magazine. And she had like, I don't even know how many copies. I went to visit her and there was a stack. There was one on the refrigerator. It was a whole basket full. When her friends came over, she handed them one. She was very proud, but still didn't understand how it equated to money and stability, which honestly it didn't, but it was a step for me. So yeah, she's still very obsessed with me to this day, that I should write a book. I need to write a book that she could physically hold and pass around to coworkers. Even when I'm like, but mom, I just did a screenplay. I just won this competition. My film was just on Delta Airlines. Yes, I'm so happy that you did those things. Write the book. So so yeah, she'll get her book one day.